Hello, it's me again. Man, since my last video, a lot of things happened. From Japanese people making a diss track to Ubisoft, to people finding out the man behind Yasuke is a samurai was basically just made it up, politicians getting involved and possibly lead to diplomatic issue in Japan. This is one of the things that a game could lead to something like this. If you don't know, in my last video I said this. I hope Ubisoft apologize, but I highly doubt that because they think everyone who kinda call out and speak out about it are racist. And now Japanese people finally got their quote-unquote apology officially from Ubisoft. Onyx, and only Onyx, nowhere else, in a wall of text that people probably glance at and keep scrolling because they don't want to read. And this quote-unquote apology from Ubisoft wasn't an apology at all. If you look at the definition of an apology is a written or spoken expression of regrets, remorse, or sorrow for having insulted, felt, injured, or wronged another person. It is typically involve acknowledge a mistake or wrongdoing and expressing a desire to make amends. And with that definition in mind, let's look at that again. This is not an apology. This is from Ubisoft, a message. If you read with me in just a second, Ubisoft did not actually admit to anything at all. Since the announcement of Assassin's Creed Shadow, we have received many positive reactions, but also some criticism, including from you, our Japanese player. We have put significant effort into ensuring an immersive and respectful representation of feudal Japan. However, our intention has never been to present any of our Assassin's Creed game, including Assassin's Creed Shadow, as factual representation of history or historical characters. Yes, except for this one. We aim to spark curiosity and encourage players to explore and learn more about the historical setting we get inspired by. If you know the history could be fake, why do you want player to learn about it? Assassin's Creed Shadow is first and foremost designed to be an entertaining video game that tells a compelling historical fiction set in feudal Japan. I don't like how they keep trying to say that, when clearly they marketing this game as historical accurate. Despite the sustained effort, we acknowledge that some elements in our promotional material have caused concern within the Japanese community. For this, we sincerely apologize. Okay, they apologize. What's wrong with it, you ask? Well, if you remember the definition of an apology, which is to correct yourself. While we strive for authenticity in everything we do, Assassin's Creed games are a work of fiction inspired by real historical events and figures. What are you talking about? Is Yasuke a historical figures or fiction? You don't need a bachelor degree in foreign language to know that this is fucking bullshit. While Yasuke is depicted as a samurai in Assassin's Creed Shadow, we acknowledge that this is a matter of debate and discussion. Just like what I said before, when it comes to a blank period in history, it is the responsibility of that country to interpret what is happening during that time. It is not your responsibility to making things up and do it for them. But this leads to a point of Japan double standard and not taking into account of future consequences, which I can agree to. In my last video, I seem to be a bit one-sided. Japan is partially responsible for this misinterpretation as well. I thought Yasuke was real as either a African warrior or a samurai because of the manga, the anime I've been seeing, and recently the manga I've seen that feature Yasuke as an African warrior surfing for Nobunaga. I forgot the name of it. It's like a tournament manga. But safe to say, Japanese people has always made creative liberty with him as either a African warrior or a samurai. And now that the Westerner think he is real, now there's a problem with his story revisionism. And I can agree that it does sound hypocritical. But let us try step in someone's shoes a bit. Hypothetically, let's say I'm making a manga about my country history. I do research for it and I found that there is a person of color serving as a servant for one of the king. There's pretty much no record of him having to fight a war or being a warrior in any way. He was just there during that time. And let's be real, I'm 100% going to take creative liberty with him and maybe change history for a bit. Maybe having him as a warrior fighting for the king just so I can see more inclusive and creative in my writing. And maybe even attract Western reader to buy my books. Japanese people probably want to be inclusive when making these games, this manga, this anime. They probably find him interesting to see foreigner as a samurai. They didn't think that this issue would lead to much bigger consequences. They especially didn't take into consideration that people would actually believe what they see. People nowadays lack independent thinking, which I also fall into that category. Sadly, this issue of not taking into account of future consequences did not apply to Thomas Lockley, the man behind Yasuke is a Samurai theory. Turns out he's been editing Wikipedia under the name of Totori Tom as far back as 2015 to sell his book. The quote-unquote The True Story of the Legendary Black Samurai was created by interpretation of his which lacked evidence to back it up. And this book of his was used as reference for this game. He even lied about not being involved with Ubisoft even though people caught him featuring in Ubisoft podcast for Assassin's Creed Shadow. The man has now deleted his social media and gone to hiding. Nihon University, the place which he worked at, has now also investigating him. This is different. This is rewriting history. Back to Ubisoft. Why not just pick a period that is more clear and well recorded, rather than trying to shoehorn one because there is a black person in it? What they say about Yasuke's unique and mysterious life made him an ideal candidate rubbed me the wrong way. He barely mentioned in any historical text, which made him unimportant. The only unique thing about him is that he is black and tall. This is a privilege at this point. It is wild to think about that if he was white, he would probably just a nobody. A lot of people said that the game was a vehicle for DEI, with their decision to make both protagonists bisexual, and they're looking for a way to put African American into other country culture. The same thing that happened to Cleopatra. If you didn't know, a years back, there is a Netflix documentary about Queen Cleopatra where they just race swap her that led to the entire country of Egypt suing Netflix for falsely portraying their history.
I remember my grandmother saying to me, I don't care what they tell you in school, Cleopatra was black.
Now, the problem for me, it's not about color. It's not about white and black. This is a very reductive way to talk about things. This is the way that Americans talk about it. Documentary. Hollywood has been erasing my people from telling. We are not allowed to tell our own history. Not just Cleopatra. Everybody in that movie, her court, everybody who's supposed to be Egyptian, they look like they came from West Africa, from the south of the Sahara. We, as Egyptians, are being called intruders and invaders in our own culture.
Yasuke wouldn't have a hip-hop track if they try to represent African. Let's be real. If you ever listen to modern African pop, just put it on YouTube. You can do it quickly. You know that they have a completely different tune to modern hip-hop. They have what's called Afrobeat, high life. It is a mix of traditional beats mixed with hip-hop and a mix of dancehall. So more of a lively rhythm. You know, one of those you see in movies. I'm so confused on why Ubisoft did not try to endorse African culture and history more. It wasn't as cool as to be a samurai, I guess. Finally, we see these uncultured folks jumping out to defend Ubisoft and just label everyone who hate this as racist. Actually, it's not Japanese player, it's just a bunch of racist white guys laughing at Japanese players getting all pissy just cause the protagonist is a black guy. It's crazy that these people don't actually know that there are countries functioning outside of the West. Right now, Asian men are invisible, to say the least. You can clearly see for yourself, our voice don't reach anywhere. They don't even believe that Japanese people are angry about this. And if you look at both sides of the argument, none of them ever say anything about not having Asian men as protagonists. People on the left didn't say anything about seeing Asian men being replaced in their own country and culture. And people on the right never mention anything about wanting Asian men. They too focus on black and white, where people in the middle are being ignored. Regardless, representation in media matter. I know a lot of Asian men don't want to talk about it, and Westerners don't want to hear about it either. But we also want Westerners to look at us with respect, like they looking at Bruce Lee, for example. We want to be seen as this powerful, confident, and quite attractive regarding of our physical stature. Positive representation in media matter when Asian men are portrayed as heroes, leader, or romantic interests. It shapes perception. It validates our heritage, tradition, and our contribution to the nation. We don't want to be seen as NPC. That is stereotype. That doesn't capture the richness, the diversity of Asian culture and individual. About this apology, it doesn't mean anything. They didn't try to make amends. At the end of the day, they're still going to release this game with Yasuke as this powerful demigod that will save Japanese people from Japanese people. But we have to wait until the games come out before making assumption. And judging by what we've seen so far, this is going to be extremely controversial. That's about it. I'm glad Japanese people see through this shit. It's boiled down to, we know you're mad, but we make creative liberty with it. So buy a game. That's about it. If you want to see something like this, subscribe. I will continue monitoring this. So catch you later.